Hello and welcome to the latest MTD Podcast. My name is Joe Reynolds and I have over 25 years experience in the design, manufacture, sales and marketing of tooling and cutting tools within the UK manufacturing arena. Today I'm joined by Phil Crawley, General Manager of HAIMER UK. Phil was the first employee of HAIMER UK and has been instrumental in growing the business to where it is today. Previously, Phil had held a number of roles working for German brands in the UK over a 30-year period. Phil is also a time-served engineer with GEC Marconi in Bournemouth Wood. Phil, many thanks for joining us today, and I hope you're well.
Thanks, Joe, and good afternoon, everybody.
Yep, I'd just like to start. Many people know of HAIMER, Phil, but probably the people that do probably don't know all of your products. And maybe for the people that don't know of HAIMER, you can just quickly fill us in about your company, where you fit in the market, and maybe some of the products you offer.
Okay, just a quick summary. Our company is based in Munich, in Germany, close to Munich. The company is 43 years old. It's a family-run concern. Still, the founders of the company are still very much alive and active within the business. Our product range really started with tool holders and the 3D sensor, and then over time has gone with the shrink machines, the balancing machines, and more latterly, the cutting tool program and the tool presetters.
Yeah, there's not many. If I go into a machine shop, there's a high percentage. If it's like a 5-axis machine, there's a high percentage chance I'm going to see some HAIMER shrink fit in there. So, you must have a relatively high market share here in the UK.
I think we do with as far as shrink fit is concerned, because often access is the issue with 5-axis machining. And, when you consider that we have shrink chucks that go down to a wall thickness of 1.5 millimeters, then we can really reduce the tool overhangs to the absolute minimum. And, with the simulation software that people have now, anti-collision, we can really choose the optimal geometry for the process.
Okay, well, we've kind of inadvertently started the products, which is great. But if we start on the tool holders, then there's probably 100 manufacturers or brands of tool holders out there, all claim to be different biases. Obviously, everyone would say they're the best or close to being the best. Yeah. In terms of HAIMER, what's your methodology? What do you think? I'm not saying you say you're the best. Maybe you do. I don't know. But it's what makes you different. Why should people look at HAIMER spindle tooling against the other 100-odd manufacturers?
I think you'll see, Joe, on all of our literature, the statement "quality wins." It's not a strap line. It's actually a philosophy of the company. And when you look to starting with the raw material, for instance, we have only 2 providers of the raw material for tool holders. Each bar is checked at both ends and in the middle before we even start the production process. And the alloy steel is something that is unique to us, that we use for our holders to provide us with a complete consistency and a longevity on the life of the holder. So, we can talk about infinite amounts of shrinks with our chucks because we know the quality of the base steel is very good. When we accompany that with our inspection process, so we have a double 100% inspection on the product as a finished item, we produce better than the DIN standard, so a higher accuracy than DIN actually requires. And, of course, our balancing quality is also second to none.
Sure, it's fair to say you it sounds obvious, but you grind the whole holder. There are certain manufacturers that don't feel the need to grind it all over. Just for people who are unaware, why is it so important that you do grind it all over?
Well, sometimes if you pick up a tool holder on the market, and there's price fighters, and they have certainly a place within the market. But if you pick up typically an HSK shank, you will see inside the hollow taper an area which is not machined after heat treatment. Now, when you bear in mind the pulling fingers for the HSK are pulling against one of those surfaces, it's not round, it's not flat. And we say all of these critical surfaces need to be recut after the heat treatment process. It's important from the balancing quality as well that we achieve that. And when you see the cutaway models at exhibitions on the HAIMER stand, these aren't specially prepared for exhibitions, this is what all of our holders look like.
Yeah, well, we hear good things from HAIMER, certainly on tool holders and many of your other products. So what you're doing seems to be working. But it feels right if we talk about balancing next, Phil. You're one of the only manufacturers of tool holder balancing machines in the market.
Yeah.
Again, not necessarily just about your machines, but why would somebody feel the need to pre-balance a tool holder where on the label it says balanced?
Well, firstly, the balancing is absolutely critical as part of the process. And I think anyone that understands physics or understands engineering can say that this is not sales talk, this is absolute physics. So we feel the need to actually have the tool holder correct at the point of delivery. But once we put a cutting tool inside, we also influence as well the unbalance. If you consider a 3-flute cutter with one tooth over center, this will create an unbalance. If you have a Weldon flat or a whistle notch on the shank, this is an unbalance. So we need to correct it every time, because now machine tools are running so much higher in terms of RPM than they ever did. And of course, this centrifugal force is exaggerated the higher the speed.
Yeah, exactly that. The faster you go, so if you're on a high speed VMC 5-axis, maybe doing some aluminium aerospace work,
Yeah.
Is it what you're saying is it's more important to be balanced? Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a customer running with 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, well, maybe the balance quality doesn't have so much influence. But if you talk about a 30,000 RPM process with an unbalanced chuck, I mean, firstly, you are sending many vibrations through the cutting edge, which is reducing the tool life. It's affecting the surface quality. And essentially, the most expensive part of that process as well is the potential damage to the machine spindle.
Yeah. And when we look at tool holders, it's fair to say there's probably a slight premium to pay for a HAIMER product than maybe some of the competition. If you were to buy those, if you were to buy them at the same time as a vertical machining center or 5-axes, what percentage of the cost, of that purchase price would be tool holders? Because I used to find it incredibly frustrating. Somebody would spend 150,000 on a machine, maybe more, and then they'll come around and say, "I've got $3,000 for tool holders." And to me, that just didn't ring true to me at the time. And 10 years on from having a proper job, I don't. My thought hasn't changed really. It's if you're better off buying an decent machine and decent tool holders rather than the world-class machine and cheap tool holders. Would you agree with that?
Every time. I think, it's difficult for us to, we have to convince a customer, that he should spend 10% of his purchase price of the machine on tool holders, because, at this point, we liken it to putting remold tires on a Ferrari. You have a beautiful machine tool, great cutting tools, and the interface between the two also needs to be of the highest order. If it isn't, I'm afraid you will never utilize the machine tool or the cutting tool to the best of their ability. So, it's a pretty low cost item when you consider the longevity of a quality product over the lifetime, because, the tool holder is such a small percentage of the overall manufacturing cost. And if we really try and reduce our machining time, this is where we save money, not on the cost of tool holders or indeed end mills or drills or taps.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously you've got various balancing machines, ones from quite manual, I won't say basic, but entry level, right up to Industry 4.0 ready, fully automated systems. But the one thing to mention, you don't even need to use your holders. I'm sure you love balancing HAIMER holders and a HAIMER unit, but you do sell these units to people that don't use HAIMER tool holders. Is that correct?
Sure. We, in the cutting tool business, some of our competitors have our balancing machines. We are recognised to be world market leader in that field. A very high accuracy, 0.5 gram millimeters we can achieve for not only tool holders, but also component balancing, Joe, if needed. These machines can be adapted very easily to take small compressor wheels from turbochargers, those sort of products. So it's quite versatile and cost effective from that point of view.
Yeah, for sure. And if we move on to your shrink machines, it seems that the next, we're getting closer to the component, aren't we, Phil? But it's if you look at your shrink machines, again, there's a number of manufacturers. Is there anything different on yours against maybe some of your competition in terms of the actual shrink fit machine?
Yeah, I think the fundamental thing that we have is a very controlled process of the heating and of the cooling. Now, the new generation coils from HAIMER have, in fact, 2 coils inside, so we inject the heat very quickly into the right areas, and we don't go anywhere near the limit of the properties of the steel. So, for instance, if our material changes at 550 degrees, we heat to around 350. So we're well within the tolerance. And also our cooling process is a very gradual process over typically 45 to 60 seconds using 360-degree contact cooling with a cold water loop from effectively a chiller unit. So it's a very controlled process. If you look at a HAIMER holder shrunk on a HAIMER machine, you will see the straw to blue type color. If you look on a tool holder that's completely black and sort of a little bit scaly, then you can say for sure that tool holder has been overheated. The net result being the grip force is lost and some of the accuracy is almost certainly lost through that process.
Yeah, so it is. It just essentially looks like you're just heating the tool up to release the tool and put a new one in. But there's a lot more science behind it than that, Phil. So these people you see with Bosch heaters, manual heaters, just, you think you're being clever saving a couple of pounds, but I guess you're damaging your tool holders beyond repair. But worst case, you may not even know you've damaged it, and you're scrapping components and reduced surface finish and things like that.
We came across on our demo van actually a customer in Ireland, and they bought the shrink chuck out. It wasn't ours; it was completely black on the end, with a cutting tool inside, and we checked it on the presetter, and it had a run out of 70 microns.
Wow!
Now that's only caused by the heating process, and I would suggest that that's been done on a machine with a manual override, probably taken up to a cherry red type condition. And that's a 200-pound tool holder is completely destroyed by the shrink machine, by nothing else.
Yeah, incredible. So it's almost false economy, isn't it? False economy. If you're going to buy decent tool holders, whether that's HAIMER or somebody else's, look after them and use heat shrinks on the correct settings, on the correct conditions.
Yeah, well, we now have a QR code system as well running on some of our shrink machines, so that it selects the right parameter for you, even with some of the machines with a driven coil as well, so that orientates to the correct aperture, and then you just bring it down and push the go button, and that's pretty much it. So we're trying to take this kind of skill level out of it, that we can't overheat chucks at all on our machines, and we have no manual overrides. It's impossible.
Yeah, so rest assured, if you look after the tool holders, they'll look after you. But a question we get asked a lot, Phil, is how many times can you, because obviously this steel's been heated up and then cooled down again, and not quenched, but it's done under a controlled process. How many times can you shrink and unshrink a tool before that tool becomes out of service, no good?
Well, we have made tests over the years, and I think they got to around 10,000 cycles without any issues at all. Grip force was still there, the accuracy was still there, but of course, it's coming back to the earlier point. It depends on really the accuracy of the heating process, how controlled that is, and the cooling. I mean, we're not in any way quenching our tools. We're bringing them down nice and slow through the process, and we believe that this gives us a real advantage.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. So now if we move one stage further through the process, we've got our tool. Our tool's been put in one of your tool holders, shrunk in. We now need to preset it, Phil, or do we? How about on machine, setting against what you offer, and you're not the only manufacturer of presetters. So, what makes HAIMER different?
Well, I mean, the return on investment, which is really the kind of tool that we would use to justify the purchase of a presetter, is based around keeping the machine tool spindle running. If you set your tools in the machine, you have the most expensive presetter in the world. The machine is there to design to cut metal, and if you can preset offline and bring those assembled tools to the machine ready to go, transfer the data electronically or by RFID chip or whichever method the customer chooses, we minimize the downtime. You also have 0-point fixtures and things like that, which also eliminate the need to set machines too much and leave it idle. So all of the return on investment is based around that. And it's pretty easy to actually prove to a customer that the payback typically can be between 3 to 6 months, typically, on a presetter.
Wow, as quick as that.
Yeah.
And when we look at presetting technology, there's some entry-level products. I don't like using that term, but some more cost-effective products. Yeah. But then you can go to all singing, all dancing presetters with, I think you've just mentioned it, but Industry 4.0, connectivity. So I guess you've got something for everyone. You've got someone for a startup, an SME, right up to a manufacturer of lots of different machines. And what type of product would you typically sell to what type of client?
Well, I think the fact that we have so many different models and so many variants of those models means that we really try to do a proper engineering process and create what's the right machine for the customer. So if it's a typical shop with, 5-6 machines, something like that, maybe he doesn't need a full CNC tool presetter. He can get with maybe a manual machine with autofocus spindle. Perhaps he doesn't need a fully clamping spindle, just one with vacuum. So we try and fit the process to suit. Of course, there's always a budget that the customer has in mind. And, we try and work and advise on the best way forward for that customer and try and deliver the right product.
Yeah. Yeah, is there such thing as a bad presetter, Phil? And that seems a daft question to ask, but there appears to be quite a difference in price. You're not the most expensive, but there does seem to be quite a difference in price against some quite basic ones to some, what I would class as, quality premium equipment like the HAIMER. Is there any way you can get tripped up at all when presetting tools?
I don't know. I mean, I would never say that there's any bad product on the market. It's a case of horses for courses, and if the customer, for instance, has a lot of face mills, big face mills with multiple inserts on, it's only right and proper that he would be offered a machine with a driven C-axis, so that the autofocus is done automatically for him. And we have machines starting at the very basic, which would probably sit alongside a machine tool in a shop, where he could just make quick checks or set tools himself, or up to the fully automatic machines, so a combination shrink machine and presetter, which would sit normally in a tool room, as we use in our production, of course, for heating and shrinking tools in one go.
And your top of the range, it can communicate, like you've already said, communicate with the machine tool. You can get traceability maybe of tool life through chips and things like this.
Yeah.
It really does take a lot of the human error out of the process.
Yeah, I mean, I think the RFID chip system is probably the ultimate, because it's the machine's recognizing which tool it has in the spindle and all the data that's associated with it. We still hear from customers who say, well, yeah, it's all very well, this measured data, but I've still got to get the tool in the right pocket. Well, yeah, we have. That's fundamentally the process that we need to get everything in the right place.
Yeah. So just to go back to the tool holders, some people would say shrink fit tooling is for deep pockets, 5-axis, difficult, hard to reach areas. But you've also got some really, really good solutions for heavy roughing, where typically people may in the past have used, collets, as crazy as it sounds, milling chucks. So what's the HAIMER philosophy behind using shrink fit for milling?
Well, it's a little bit of a misconception sometimes that the shrink fit is only for finishing operations for high accuracy, but we recognise that the less material you can leave on after the roughing process, then the better the finishing process is. So, we have developed heavy-duty shrink chucks with a system safe lock, which is an anti-pull-out system, and we have many licensed partners of cutting tools for that product as well as our own. So we call it the safety belt for cutting tools because fundamentally you wear a seatbelt in a car and 99.9% of the time you don't need it. But the one occasion you do, you're grateful you have it. And similarly with milling tools, I mean, I'm not saying you'll get a pull out every single time, but if you look at the way the modern process is with trochoidal milling, then the pull out potential is much greater than it ever used to be. So it's interesting. I went to a seminar last year or the year before at Mazak, actually, all about automation. And it was really fascinating what can be done now with automation. But the one thing that struck me out of all of it, Joe, was that unless you have a process, automation is almost worthless. Otherwise, you could be making scrap.
Yeah, that's always my argument. If you don't have a reliable process, it hasn't got to be the quickest even. If it doesn't repeat, forget about your robot, forget about your bar feed. Because you're gonna have a man stood there anyway. So we need number 1.0, if you like, is a safe, reliable process. And I agree with everything you say.
If you don't know that the end mill's not going to stay in place, then you don't have a process. You need a mechanical lock, and with our system, you have that. The end mill will not shift in the axial direction, so you have some reliability in that side. Let's say.
Yeah. And it's when you look at all the HAIMER products, there's no questioning the quality of the products. But there's a demonstration I saw at a German trade show, and it blew me away. Everything we've talked about today, balancing, presetting, we haven't talked about your cutting tools yet. You manufacture yourselves, but I was at this trade show and everything was automated. You had from memory, it's a FANUC robot delivering everything. So essentially, some sort of code brings up, this is the tool holder, this is the end mill, this is the drill, whatever it may be, and the next thing the robot delivers a fully balanced preset cutting tool.
Yeah, I mean it's a system we call DAC, which is really a control center, if you like, for all of the machines in the HAI 4.0 process. So it's recognizing the vend. And then in this case, I know the demo that you're talking about, Joe, really took the whole process of shrinking and balancing done automated by robot. I think, for a lot of companies, it's a step in the future, but I can see it coming more and more because this thing doesn't take breaks, it just keeps working. And, it's a very, very efficient system. And I think we will see it more in this country in the coming years.
I agree. Wherever you can take a human being out, whether that's the actual machining process, the programming, the picking, the placing, the presetting of tools, anywhere you can reduce, human beings being so heavily reliant, I do believe they'll be reduced in a good way. I don't necessarily think factories with no human beings, but instead of presetting tools all day, maybe they're going to teach you how to program the machine tool and things like that. So I think it can only be seen as a positive.
I agree, and it's the future. It's coming, and we have to embrace the technology. And HAIMER are at the forefront of that. As the 4.0 machines are available to us now, and the connectivity of those through the DAC software. There is a couple of UK customers, sizable ones, that are talking about this process already. So we're already ongoing with inquiries.
No, exciting. And just finally, we haven't got time to go for all your products because you do pretty much everything now at HAIMER. But obviously you've got your tool room maintenance, which is what I would class, I don't know what you call it, but as a 5S product. The amount of time it's lost trying to find cutting tools, spanners, whatever it may be. The amount, £40 an hour is 66p a minute, and they soon add up, don't they?
They do, and we use the word tool management for this. I think not to get lost in translation, but this is more of a storage solution that we talk about here. And where we have customers that use this, is a very tidy, neat system. And all of us come from a shop floor background where we spend 2 hours looking for a Torx key, for a face mill, or for a turning holder, and it's always in the night shift guy's pocket when you eventually find it. And it's like not really a measured loss in engineering, but we know it's there. And if you can kind of get rid of that process and store everything to the point even where we typically in this country, you don't see so much now preset areas where one person is responsible for building tools. And again, there's huge saving potential in that. And we have it in our business in HAIMER in Germany, that we have really 2 preset areas now, which are controlling around 150 machine tools. Wow. So you can imagine it's a fair throughput, and every single one is, disassembled, cleaned, shrink fit again, balance, preset, and back out. So, with an efficient process, it's done with 1 to 2 people in each one.
Incredible.
Yeah, very efficient.
Yeah. So for people listening to this podcast, I do encourage you to go to your website. I think it's HAIMER, HAIMER.biz, B-I-Z. Obviously, all the products and more, what we've discussed today, will be available on there. But things, Safe Lock, Giro Lock, your tool balancing, things like that, you do need to, even if you don't end up buying something, do go and educate yourself. Do go and learn more about the HAIMER products, and as much about their products, how they think about the machining process. You will learn a lot. I know I've done a lot of machining in my time, and I picked up a lot from HAIMER, working with HAIMER over the years, and it's a lot of what they talk about makes a lot of sense when you actually read it. So I do encourage anyone listening to go to HAIMER.biz. But Phil, just before we finish, obviously people can learn more going to the website, coming to MTD, but in terms of product promotions, stock deals, is there anything on the horizon as we speak?
Yeah, we've got some promotion stuff running at the moment. So we have shrink machines, balancing machines, and presetters, some tool holders and cutting tools within that. If people want to get in touch through the office, then we can discuss the pricing for those. It's a difficult time we're in right now, and I think customers are probably looking to optimize what they have. So we're actually seeing really an upturn in inquiries for presetters, for example, right now. So if people are interested, then get in touch with us, and we'll do what we can to help.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, appreciate your time. As I say, anybody listening to this podcast, please do take a look at HAIMER, HAIMER.biz. .biz. You will learn, and we've done a number of videos over the years with HAIMER reviewing some of their products. So please go to MTDCNC.com and search for HAIMER as well. But Phil, many thanks. Stay safe, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you very much, Joe. Good to talk.
Yeah, likewise. And for everyone at home, thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to the MTD Podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on mtdcnc.com.